Hey, how are you? Like, really, how are you doing? I hope all is well. And as we close in on the end of the year here, I wanted to have this important discussion about work and life balance. And balancing is really the key word here, because there is honestly no such thing as perfect work life balance. I think a lot of times what we strive for isn't actually possible in this realm. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and also what we can do to stay happy, to stay joyful, to stay on top of things, and live a good life. That's really what today is about. So I'm living a good life, mostly because you're here right now. Whether you're watching the replay or here live with me today with the fellow members of the quarantine, thank you so much. Welcome to the income stream.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Stephanie, Gabriella. Grandma Goody says, tired, stressed out, and happy. I needed this. I kind of like that. I like that because you don't necessarily always need to be feeling at peace with everything to still be happy. I think that we could be happy despite the stress. Sometimes we thrive in times and moments of stress. I have to thank a lot of you for coming into yesterday's webinar about webinars, a little meta, but I had a really good time, and I think that we taught a lot of things, and a lot of people have recently signed up for my new program, which is pretty cool. Our brand new course, in fact, the first one that we launched this year that is brand new, the one and only, in fact, called the A to Z Webinars. I'm not here to sell that to you. I'm just here to let you know that that's available. And again, thank you so much for coming into the webinar yesterday. Today, we're talking about work-life balance and balancing, again, being the key word. Because when you think about perfect balance, I want you to imagine a scale, right? A scale where you can put a weight on one side and it goes this way and then it goes this way. And a lot of times when we think about perfect work-life balance, we imagine the scale, boom, perfectly centered. And in order for a scale to be perfectly centered, what do you need? You need equal weight on both sides. And that's only one instance of the entire spectrum of what can happen with a scale. And if we strive for that perfection, for that perfect balance, every other moment, even if we're just like this, or even if we're just like this, we don't feel like we're doing it right. And I want you to know that we can feel like we're doing it right, even if there's not perfect balance. I think the big idea here is that we need to just make sure it doesn't go too far to one side and topple over, or too far to the other side and topple over. I'm hoping this analogy comes through because this is what we're going to talk about today. How do we keep perfect life balancing? It's a balancing act. And the hard thing about this as well is when we strive for perfection, things throw us off balance all the time. It's just a matter of having mechanisms and systems and people and accountability in place so that we don't go too far on one side or too far on the other, right? Big thank you to all the veterans who have served, by the way. It's a holiday here in the U.S., Veterans Day. Thank you for your service, everybody who has served and everybody who is serving and everybody who is related to or knows somebody who is serving. We appreciate you. Would be interesting to hear balancing music. I like that, Elton. Let's see. Maybe we can get some of our chill music from, whoops, totally lost everything that I was doing. There we go. I'm going to go to new window. I'm going to open up YouTube. Let's get some music as we talk about this. This is a little bit more of a Zen topic today, if you will. But it's not necessarily just all hoo-hoo or what do you say? Hoo-ha? Hoo-hash? We watched The Grinch the other day, so I'm thinking about hoo-hash. Woo-woo is kind of the word I was going for. Let's go lo-fi stream beats. Samson in the house. Travis, Isaiah, the Matables. Excellent. Thank you for being here, everybody. There we go. I like the music in the background. I just don't want to do it all the time because it's the few playlists that we have available that are free and royalty free that we are allowed to use without getting docked for copyright. So if you want to check that out, Stream Beats by Harris Heller, big thank you. Chat, let me know if the sound levels are okay. It was an article today that came out on the Wall Street Journal. And I'm just going to read it here for you. I'm not going to pop it up on the screen. But it says, and this is funny because it literally just came out 20 minutes ago, and I was making coffee and I saw this come up and I was reading it for a little bit why I was late this morning. But companies try 30-hour work weeks, surprise days off to fight burnout, right? Fearing another wave of anxiety among employees, some companies are launching experiments to ease the strains of work and life during the pandemic. So it's interesting. Sometimes the world provides. I came up with this topic yesterday to set it up, and then all of a sudden I wake up this morning and this article came out. So I highly recommend you read this article, but I want to share with you some of the tweets and some of the clips. This is why I get most of my news from Twitter, in fact, and just kind of what's trending. And I follow a lot of business stuff, and these kind of articles pop into my feed every once in a while. And I want to share this with you. All right. So here are some things that companies are talking about. Companies fear another wave of anxiety among employees. Quote, "I don't think we've yet come to the grips with the mental impact this is having on all of us." So what we're essentially discussing here is that we're in crazy times right now, times that we've never been in before. And as a result, a lot of anxiety can come up, a lot of stress, especially if you don't know how to handle this. A lot of my most popular videos that came out in March and April of 2020 were about having this idea now that we're working from home all the time. How do we work from home remotely? How do we stay on top of things? How do we stay healthy? How do we stay within our relationships? Because work-life balance, it's not about the number of hours doing this and the number of hours doing that. That's what a lot of people feel work-life balance is. To me, work-life balance is having great health, or at least being healthy during whatever time we're in. To me, it's also about having focus and progressing on the projects that you want to progress on, and still having the time to do those things and make progress on those things. To me, work-life balance is maintaining, and if not continuing to grow, the relationships that you've built and the relationships that you have. A relationship with your spouse, your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your roommates, your kids, of course, and your family, your extended family. Are we remaining connected with them during these times? To me, work-life balance is also this idea of staying positive and staying hopeful, right? Staying excited about the future. Overall, are you happy? And if we're not happy, we're not balanced, I feel. We're not balanced. And again, balance is not that perfect balance. Certain amount of hours on one side, certain amount of hours on another side. That's difficult to measure, number one. And number two, if you do measure it, any little thing that throws it off just makes the whole system not work. And again, this is this idea of not going too far to one side and too far to the other. Love the conversation that's happening in the chat right now. Let's go back to this article again on the Wall Street Journal about companies shooting for 30-hour work weeks. And of course, not all companies are doing this yet, but I love how companies and bosses and business owners are thinking about the mental health of their employees. This is really important. Managers say many remote employees report feeling depressed, fed up, and wary of what's next. All right, well, I think we can all imagine that. If you are working 9 to 5, but you happen to be working from home, it's a completely different environment. It's difficult to step away from the personal/home life when you are working from home. This is why a solution that I've come up with, and this had to happen really quickly back in 2008, 2009 when I first started, especially since we were having kids. I just got married, I just got laid off, was working from home. Boundaries were really important. Boundaries, both physical space boundaries, if possible, not always possible. It wasn't possible when I started. I had a little nook in a kitchen, and that's where I was working. But it still was a physical space to which when I would walk and sit down into the kitchen in that little nook, I knew I was in work mode, and everybody else, April, knew I was in work mode too. And then I'd get up, leave, and then I wasn't in work mode. I could check out. And even though I was at home working, I still had a place to check in and a place to check out. Now, even more important than the physical boundary is the time boundary. That amount of time that you bind to the work that you're doing or the work that you're not doing. Now in my calendar, I not only schedule my meetings, my interviews, my progression in podcasting and other courses that I'm working on and all these kinds of things, projects, I time block, right? I have a certain amount of time to make progress on something. I don't really believe in to-do lists. I believe in which project am I prioritizing and how many hours per day, per week am I offering to that. And then I just try to make progress on it. Put the blinders on during that time. That's when I'm working. Outside of that time, it's whatever else is on the calendar, including family time, time with the family. That's even on the calendar too, because that time boundary allows me to keep other things out of this really important time that I have with my kids too, right? Scooby Life says, that made me laugh. Everyone, April. That's literally the only person that I was with when I was working from home. Now we have the 2 kids and Jarvis. Article I'm referencing. Thank you for this. Let's pop this up here so we can take a look at it. Literally the only reason I didn't pop it up is because I didn't have a link in time. So, K-Walk Comedy, moderators crushing it here. Thank you. Some other highlights. Now, I'm not going to read this, and of course, now that I'm remembering it, I'm also not here because I need to subscribe. I was once subscribed to the Wall Street Journal when I had my book as a Wall Street Journal bestseller because I needed to go and find it and take screenshots, but I think that was only for a month. I love what I'm seeing here, though. Bosses now are taught to begin one-on-one sessions with a simple phrase meant to elicit genuine emotions instead of a stock, "How are you?" before quickly moving on. Business managers might ask, "How are you, really? How are you really doing?" And I love that. I love that managers are thinking a little bit more about the mental health of their people. And it makes sense, right? If you're not taking care of the people who are working for you, how is your work going to get taken care of? And you don't want to lollygag on this. You need to, if you have employees, consider how they're doing. Now, I love this tweet here from Danny Groner, who said, McKinstry, who is a person who's being talked about in this article, began issuing company-wide Good News Friday memos, pointing out, hey, here's 8 things that happened this week that are pretty good, says the CEO. That could be feedback from a happy customer or details about the business the company landed. One thing that we do on Team SPI that I'd recommend doing with your team if you have one, and of course your family if you have one too. I think that a lot of this stuff in business can be brought into the family in terms of things that improve the business and the relationships that we have there. Why not do a lot of these things with our family too? So one thing that we do on Team SPI is we have what we call retros. Retros on Friday. This is something that I actually wasn't really a big fan of at first until I started to attend them and really understand the power behind them. So I got to give a shout out and thanks to my COO and CFO, Matt Gartland. He did these with his company before I acquired his company and took the entire team in earlier this year. So one thing that we do is retro. And retro means every Friday we get together as a team and we just round robin, go around and just start sharing something great that happened in work. We also share a struggle. And what this does is it allows for us to have an outlet. In addition to the work-related things, if people are happy to share and we encourage it, we encourage our team members to share what's going on in their personal life, anything that might have happened at home. A couple of our team members have kids. Mindy, who's on our team, just had a baby recently within the last year, and a lot of her news is about her son. One of the things that I remember from one of the stories she told is how incredible it is that intuitively we as human beings, when it's snowing, we look up at the sky, we open our mouth to taste it. Because she said her son, under a year old, saw snow for the first time in Minnesota, looked up and opened his mouth. And I was like, you know what? That makes me happy. That makes me happy. And to see that she's still experiencing these things and work is, although crazy, we can still have personal things happen, and that's awesome. So I love this idea of having team members, especially managers, check in with their people. right? And not just ask, well, hey, how you doing? But ask, like, how are you really doing? What's going on at home? How are you feeling? Is there anything that we can do to support you? That's really key. And then having a regularly scheduled program to go and have people share the great things that are happening. Good News Friday. I absolutely love that. Samson, you're sitting on a heating pad. Hot stuff. Cool. The matables. It's little. I think you didn't finish your comment, but it's the little things that matter for sure. Let's see. Jen says here, we were burned out even before the pandemic arrived. The pandemic has exacerbated existing issues and created new ones. So I think it's really important to understand that we're living in crazy times right now. So it's now more important than ever to take care of other people, but more importantly, also take care of yourself. Because if you can't take care of yourself and you're not in the right mindset, you're not healthy, you're not available, how in the world are you going to help other people, right? And we're here to serve others. This is the idea of SPI. Serve first, and then you will be rewarded, right? Your earnings are a byproduct of how well you serve your people. But I think your happiness is also a result of how well you serve others around you. I don't know about you, but I gain happiness when I see that I can help people, even outside of business. But you can't help others unless you can help yourself first. Very similar to this phrase where you can't love other people until you love yourself too. So I think it's important to take care of ourselves. And again, this isn't about 25 hours of this versus 25 hours of that. Boom, perfect balance. This is about balancing in this idea of just trying to be as happy as possible. April and I had a really interesting discussion yesterday. We often talk about business, not in the sense of, numbers, not in the sense of even SPI and how it's doing, but just business in general. A lot of our friends have their own businesses and we chat about things a lot. But we just got into this really interesting conversation yesterday about this idea of, like, I don't know if it was her or me, but like, why is it that when we meet people for the first time, the very first question we ask is, when we want to know somebody's like, what do you do? Like, that answer defines who you are. And I think a lot of this discussion happened as a result of, April being a stay-at-home mom. And a lot of times, especially in the neighborhood we live in, everybody is very, very goal-oriented. Everybody is striving for bigger, striving for better in the neighborhood that we're in. It's a great neighborhood. We absolutely love it. There's a lot of great things for our kids here. There's a lot of amazing schools, and there are a lot of amazing people. We've befriended many of them. But there's certain groups of people here in this neighborhood who, when April might introduce herself as a stay-at-home mom, they might respond with, oh, that's it? And it's like, what do you mean that's it? That's like what I've chosen to dedicate my life to right now, because that is what's important to me. And then you start to dig a little bit deeper, and these people are often working 60 hours a week, burned out. They hardly spend any time with their kids. They're working so that they can pay money to a babysitter to do, and again, no shame, everybody, you do you, right? But it's just, again, this idea of, why is it that the first question that we want to know or we ask of people is, well, what do you do? Right? When I go to conferences, it's like, well, what do you do? But why does that have to define who we are? Why is that number one? A lot of times you look at social profiles of people, and what do we put first? The thing that we do. I even remember seeing somebody recently, I'm not going to mention any names, of course, but it was sort of a list. It was on social media, a list of all the things that they've accomplished, that they've done, that they're doing. Number one was their business. Number two was something related to being a life coach. Number three, number four, number five, number six, mother of three. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Why is that number six? Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is a priority list, because I'm pretty sure that she also prioritizes her kids. But why do we do that? JLD in the house. What's up, John? Good to see you, my friend. From Puerto Rico. John, if you're still here, why do you think we're so concerned always about what we do or who does what? Why are we defined based on the job that we have? Why are we defined based on the career choice that we made? Why is it that's what we want to know first? And so April and I were talking, and John, you've interviewed, thousands of entrepreneurs, right? Go listen to Entrepreneurs on Fire if you haven't already. But it's interesting because John obviously is talking to people about their careers and is often asking the question, so what do you do? Tell me about it, right? But when it comes to even just befriending somebody on the street, somebody at Starbucks who we sort of are in line with and we connect and you start a conversation. Oh, what do you do? It always comes up. Right? The Matable says, perhaps it's to build self-credibility. So when we ask somebody else, is that for our own purpose because we want to know where we stack up against them? Is that what you're saying, the Matables? Yes, plus talking about how you do and your certification, says Asma, right? Yep, I'm a 5-year architecture school graduate with, I graduated magna cum laude. I think in a sense, you're right. We share these things about ourselves, for sure. I think that there's definitely some psychology here just based on human nature, right? Being a leader of a pack puts you in a more secure position, being somebody who can contribute to the rest of the group, to society as a great citizen. You're a little bit more safe when it comes to the group mentality, right? I think I can agree with that for sure. I think that's just fact. But when it comes to why we want to know this about somebody else, is it a comparison thing? Or has it just become what what we do? So April and I were like, so what do we ask instead? What would be a better question? And I was like, well, what if we just started asking people like, what are you excited about? And we were like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like if you went to a conference, you met somebody for the first time and you asked, hey, nice to meet you, Ryan. What are you excited about these days? That's kind of cool. Like that feels really good to me. But then April took it one step further and she asked a question that I really loved. And I want you to potentially practice asking people who you meet this question. I really love it. I want to use it. I want to see if I can completely avoid what a person does and just go right into this. What are you into? I love that question. It's not what are you good at? What do you do? It's more of like, what are you passionate about? That's how you really get to know a person, right? Let me know if you agree. I love that question. Absolutely. Hey, Ryan, nice to meet you. What are you into? Oh my gosh, I'm totally into hanging out with my kids at home. I'm totally into business. Sure, that can come up in an answer too. It's not a bad thing. I'm totally into Pokemon cards. I'm totally into driving my Segway around town. I don't have a Segway. I don't know why I said that. Gail says, what are you celebrating this week? Travis says, well, it's because we don't know what else to talk about. I can see that. What's up, Jordan? Good to see you. Good evening. I like what you said at the beginning of the pandemic. What is possible? Indeed, this is something that I got from Michael Hyatt. He was pronouncing it very, very loudly on social media. And it's this idea of, well, what does this make possible? So going back to, sorry, I just got a little bit off tangent there with relation to a conversation that April and I had yesterday. But again, I really, really love this idea of, well, asking people what they're into, right? What are you into? The Patmobile. I like, what are you into? Best, short, sweet, positive, right? I like rephrasing that as, what defines you? Yeah, that's essentially what that question asks, but what defines you can get a little deep, right? Anyway, I love it. Awesome advice for the open question. What do you love doing? Says Peer Support Academy. I love that. What interests do you have? John says, I'm a big believer in the compare and despair fallacy. The only person we should be comparing ourselves is to us yesterday. If we are winning that comparison, we are winning. Dude, amen, my friend. Amen. And I've talked about that several times here on the show too. And it's this idea of when you compare yourself to others, you can't compare because we're looking for things that almost kind of put us down or raise us above, right? Like, oh, how am I better or how am I worse? That's not a very healthy way to approach a person or to approach any topic. How am I better than this? How am I worse than this? Right? Because what you're doing is hoping and basing these comparisons off of stuff that you cannot necessarily know all the information about. When we compare our full life to somebody else's highlight reel on Instagram, for example, then we're playing a dangerous game. I agree with that, John, for sure. So let's compare ourselves to ourselves yesterday. How are we, like James Clear says, incrementally improving ourselves 1% every day? It might not seem like a lot, but it'll exponentially grow to productivity levels, to health, to relationships that you can't even imagine. I know John practices this, getting a little bit better every single time he does something, and going all in. We've seen it before. Daily podcasts for over 2,000 episodes, maybe even over 3,000 episodes, right? And you can't help but get better and improve every single time. This is why John's one of the top podcasters in the world. And John, I appreciate, again, you coming in today. Amina says, what does your t-shirt say? It says, the floor is Lego. Because when you step on Lego, I'd rather step on lava than Lego, to be honest. Very, very grateful for all of you coming in today. I love this discussion, by the way, and I'm thankful that we have a safe place to talk about this. And we're going to go and dive back into the conversation about work-life balance and some of the things that we can do. And I think I want to also talk about this idea of maintaining your health, both physically and mentally during this time. We talked a lot about this stuff, and I think hope is a really big and important thing to talk about. A lot of us are losing hope, especially with how long and drawn out this has been, especially in the US. I think this is why we saw a lot of what we saw after the election. I don't want to get into politics here, but I think that something new finally came around to potentially change the way things are happening, because things were promised that didn't happen. And wow, we are getting tired. We are getting mentally drained and fatigued, and we need to have something. And hope is really important. And your mental health affects the world that you live in, and the world that you live in affects your mental health. It's a positive and or negative feedback loop. By the way, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, plus that bell notification icon so you can get notified every time there is a new video coming out. Now that I've just finished the launch of the new course is in fact still going on until Monday, but I just finished the webinar and all this other stuff, so we're just putting the final touches on some of the final videos in that course actually, but it is open and available for the first 6 modules right now, which is really exciting. But now that that's mostly done, I'm excited because I'm going to start creating more pre-recorded YouTube videos here about specific topics. But again, I love going live with you. I'm not going to stop until at least after 1 full year straight going live. We're going for 365. We're going to do it. We're approaching 300. I'm not even sure if I got today's number right, to be honest. If we're either at 373 or 236 or 237. Well, here's a question from the Matables. Pat, when you were practicing, by the way, because eventually I'm going to get on Nomadables podcast. We're making this happen behind the scenes here. Pat, when you were first starting off in your early years, what drove you? In the beginning, we always have to grind, and you're one of the hardest workers I've ever met. Thank you. I think I've just gotten into this momentum ever since the start as a result of having a very clear why. And having a very clear why is really important. So thank you, Nomadables, for that. So for me, what drove me was I had just gotten laid off, right? And I had just proposed to my girlfriend, fiance, now wife, April. And so that was driving me. I want to make this work because I want to become the person who she signed up for, right? Somebody to support her and the family that we were going to build together. And having gotten laid off right after the proposal, it was a little bit draining. And it was like, oh my gosh, is she going to leave me? All this kind of stuff. And of course, those are just the demons in my head coming out like they always do when life changes happen. And so I'm very, very grateful that the first thing I learned, and the first thing, in fact, that I heard from April when I got laid off was, I'm going to be here with you no matter what. That was huge. And that drove me more than anything. Hey, she's going to sit, this is just like on The Greatest Showman, right? The Greatest Showman. The main character, Barnum, he wanted to make things work because he wanted to provide for his family. And so he took a lot of risks. He did some things that maybe he shouldn't have done. He sold rights to a fleet of ships that he had access to because the ships were at the bottom of the ocean. But that's how he was able to get bank loans, right? So anyway, I just noticed the masks in the background. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Which one's your favorite? What other masks should I get though? I was like, ooh, maybe I should start a mask collection, but there aren't really that many more cool masks that I can think of. And I don't really want anything like super scary either. But anyway, The Greatest Showman is great. But then, of course, there are lessons within that movie of trying to go too far, wanting too much, saying yes to everything, getting distracted, right? This movie, The Greatest Showman, not only has some of the best music that I've heard in a while, not only does it have my man Zac Efron in the house, and Zendaya, wow, and music that you can't stop listening to once you hear it. It has some really good life lessons too, right? Especially that woman, the opera singer, she sings this song, right? She's like, never enough, never, never, never enough. That's the whole, like, when are you going to be happy, Barnum? When are you going to be satisfied? I'm never going to be satisfied. Doing a little crossover today. Who knows where that's from? Rewind. Wow. We're going places I didn't think we were going today. All right, let's go back to mental health, work-life balance. You know, honestly, and I think John will agree with me here, this is one of those things that's often underrated in terms of mental health. It's the food that you put into your body. And the pandemic, for me, I'm experiencing this as well. It's given me an excuse to not eat as well. Like, I think I fell off the wagon a little bit at the beginning when we were all at Trader Joe's and everybody was just hoarding everything because we were so worried about what the heck was going on. And we just were like, snacks, like carbs, like everything that'll last, preservatives, get it all, right? Yes, Hamilton. Very good. Thank you. Power Rangers, Elton. I could have a whole Power Ranger display back here. I don't know. My favorite was the Black Power Ranger, by the way. That outfit was dope. Okay. So, food, fuel, right? If you want to have, well, I don't know how much longer this analogy will work because we're kind of migrating toward a world of EV cars, electronic vehicles. But if you have a high performance car, you don't want to fill it with terrible gas, right? That's not going to work as well. And the fuel that you put in your body directly affects so many things. It directly affects your creativity. It affects your health. It affects your mood. And I think that we, especially, I mean, there's so many things, like, sometimes I get a little depressed thinking about how hard it is to remain healthy, how distracted we can be with a lot of the advertisements that we see, a lot of this, you're at the store and boom, that display is showing things in the right colors, in the right way, with the right words, with the right illustrations to just tie you in, to have you have that bag of chips. And then you can't stop, right? Things are almost built and created in a way that it's really hard. This is why I think, along with just being aware, having accountability, having other people who are there to support you is going to be really key. And this I know, and again, John is here as well. This is something that's really important when it comes to it's something that's really important when it comes to staying stable, having a shoulder to cry on at times, having support when you need it. In business, we talk about mastermind groups quite a bit. Formalized groups of people, 4 to 5 people within each group, to meet together every single week, every single month, to A, hold each other accountable, B, set goals together, C, be there when they need each other, both on the business and personal level. Hey, thanks for the thumbs down, by the way. No, truly, like, if you need that to feel better, all good. Still helps with the algorithm. I hope you have a better day. People, we need to be around and surround ourselves with people who are going to lift us up. And unfortunately, in addition to this world that we live in, with a lot of things working against us, this being, why is it that the most healthy food is the most expensive, right? It's like we're almost like, unless we're awoken or out of the matrix, we're almost kind of, we have a lot we're fighting against, which is why, getting together with people is really key. But I think that having a safe space like here on the income stream, having groups of people that you can meet up in groups and even have conversations with, having a person to call is really key, One thing that we've talked about here on the show before is this idea of what we call your layoff lifeline. This comes from Jordan Harbinger from the Jordan Harbinger Show, and he taught me this when I interviewed him on the podcast. And he said that one of the best things that we can do is just continue to stay in contact with those from our past, and to stay in contact with them for no other reason than to just check up and see how they're doing and stay in contact with them. Because there might come a point in time in the future when you're really going to need help, and you would have wished that you've maintained these relationships so that you're not just reaching out of nowhere and the first moment of contact is an ask. You want the ask to be natural within a relationship that you've already built. So we often do this here, even live on the channel, going into your text messages and scrolling all the way to the bottom and reaching back out to those people who you haven't reached out to in a while, right? I can even see already 4 or 5 people that I haven't reached out to in such a long time because life gets in the way. But having these people reach out to them, say hello, check up on them, see how they're doing, it can spark up a new conversation. It can bring new life to that relationship. And it can be something that 6 months down the road, when you eventually really need some help, like Jordan did when his business partners, in fact, kicked him out of his business, The Art of Charm. They removed him, even though he set up the whole thing and he had to set up shop somewhere else. He was able to reach out to so many people to get support, including myself, because he had always checked up on us. He'd always maintained those relationships. And I think that's absolutely key. I think if you don't address the thumbs downer, it will be boring for them. Yeah, it's just kind of a fun thing I do. I also want to just express, not everybody's going to be happy with what you do. And I think this is really important in terms of mental health for business. Sometimes we get very depressed. We get a lot of anxiety, worried that we're going to upset some people. And I think that if you have common sense with relation to maybe some of the marketing that you do and, of course, how you show up, then, okay, that makes sense to me. But if you are worried about thumbs down, if you're worried about losing subscribers because you're sending a really valuable email and it might not be relevant to some people, I mean, there's haters and trolls out there, and it just is a part of the landscape. But again, this is why it's important to have people to connect with and friendships. Like John and I, we've been friends since 2011. And I remember meeting John for the first time at Blog World Expo, and he asking me to be his first interview. I'm interview number 1 of Entrepreneurs on Fire, and I really am really thankful for that. John says, hurt people, and Mr. Thumbs Down is hurt, and Pat is doing the right thing addressing it. Thank you. By the way, if you are here and you are enjoying the show, thank you. Hit that thumbs up button. I'm digging the music. I hear it a little bit in the background as well, and it's just adding a cool vibe to this. I think that if there was no music, we were talking about this stuff, it would maybe come across a little bit too much like a presentation, and I just like the vibe. High five, everybody. Appreciate you for being here today. Now, let's keep talking. I just remembered I had a soundboard. Right? Everyone isn't going to be happy with what you do, for sure. And hurt people. Yeah, absolutely. When people are putting you down, it's oftentimes because they've been put down too. And we can't help it. It's just that pattern continues, and we can be the one that stops it, right? We have a choice. When somebody says something negative about us, we have a choice. How are we going to move forward from this in a positive way? Sure, it doesn't feel good. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't hurt sometimes, but we always have a choice for how we can react to certain situations and certain people. For every second that you waste on a hater or a troll or thinking about a negative comment and doubting yourself is a second that you're taking away from those who, in fact, do need you, have indeed appreciated you, and need you to step up and continue to support them, right? This is really cool. Great crowd today, everybody. Thankful that you're here. My roommate just said that. Why is healthy food the most expensive, right? It's true. But I think, you know what? Healthy food expires faster. It costs more to harvest it, to bring it to where it needs to be in time. This is why things like canned food is often the cheapest, because It has a much longer shelf life, therefore the price can be lower, all these kinds of things. Gotta run, Pat. Love you, bro. Love you too, John. Thanks so much, my friend. Appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. Everybody subscribe to John Lee Dumas and listen to Entrepreneurs on Fire if you can. He's got some really cool stuff planned. I know about it. I don't know if I can share it yet, John, but just look out for this guy. All right. I stressed yesterday, says the mature man, after having a great attitude over the weekend. So I made the decision to stop tweeting. I had a sketchy account for fussing and delete some DVR programs that riled me up. Good for you. Good for you. You know, we have a choice, right? And I love that you did that. And sometimes we hold on to things because we just by nature are hoarders, or we just have these things available to us. Doing a little cleanup is really important, right? What sparks joy for you? Going back to what mental health, what actually work-life balance is. It's hopefully experiencing as much joy as you can. And that's a very difficult question to have right now because we're in a time where there's a lot less things to be joyful about. We're not able to go and see as many friends as possible. We're not able to go travel to the places that we like. Our family experiences massive joy when we get to travel. We haven't traveled for so long. And a lot of what helps us is watching television shows where we get to travel within those shows. Gordon Ramsay's Uncharted has been an amazing outlet for us. In fact, watching Gordon Ramsay, who's just a hoot, number one, but number two, he travels to these different exotic locations and he cooks food with the locals there and he has to present, like, it's awesome. Uncharted, amazing. It's on Disney+. Romer says, but is it really? Canned food is more expensive than buying dry beans. Well, dry beans, yeah, of course, rice, yeah. Those aren't canned, but their shelf life is years, right? So this is, again, depending on how long we can keep these things stored, the price goes down. Ryan says, I stopped watching the news because it was causing stress and anxiety. Yeah, I popped on the news the other day with relation to the election, of course, and then, of course, it like moved to other news afterwards, and it's just like, why are we highlighting all the bad things? It's because it's what gets people glued to the screen. It's what makes money. And we have to think about this. It's very similar to why certain things happen on social media. I don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma, the Netflix documentary. Very eye-opening. Very eye-opening. A lot of social media is causing a lot of this anxiety. A lot of this social media is causing an imbalance in happiness and joy. I don't know why I said it like that. Joy. I think because I was going to say work-life balance, but this is why it's really important to have control and to just be aware. And I think when we are aware of the kinds of things that the news offers us, we can then go, no thanks. I'm going to pay attention to this other thing. I'm going to go read this book, or I'm going to go spend time here. When we are aware of the way social media works, in fact, things are being shown to us because these companies are using machines and algorithms to determine what would keep us on those platforms longer. Because the longer we stay on these platforms, the more likely it is that ad revenue is going to come in for these companies. The most surprising thing was like the founder of Pinterest was there doing an interview, and the woman doing the interview was like, hey, so do you let your kids do social media? And he's like, oh God, no. These people didn't even know what they were building. But if you've read Nir Eyal's book, Hooked, you'll understand that this stuff exists to hook us. So when we are aware of this, when we're now unplugged from the matrix, we can then finally take a little bit of control over it, right? The news creates hysteria. Also, my television had technical issues. Cool. Definitely minimized watching the news. Got to maintain balance, be intentional for sure. And I think being intentional with your social media use is key as well. I know a lot of you, in fact, schedule or come in here every day, and this is important to you because it does uplift you, I'm hoping, and it does give you a connection to other people, and it does help you learn strategies and tactics to help you grow your business. And by the way, if you haven't yet done so, hit that subscribe button because I would love to see you here again. It should pop up in a moment here. There we go. It's on a loop. I should sort of remove the last part of that loop. But at the same time, it's important to show up, I think, on social media. It's important to be accessible. But I think it's also important to just kind of be aware and have control over it. It's when we start losing control that things start to spiral. I think the last thing here that I want to discuss is, well, when things don't go according to plan, right? This has been the entire year's theme. When things don't go according to plan. We did not plan for this pandemic. In February and March, when all this started going down, it was just havoc, right? And as a result, now especially experiencing something that we haven't experienced before, which this isn't the last time we're going to experience something that we haven't experienced before, right? So we can better prepare. And I think that as long as we completely understand what is important to us, and I think that what has been nice about the pandemic is it's slowed us down a little bit. And it's helped us realize, okay, what is actually important here? And what might make this possible, right? To go back to what K-Walk was saying earlier, right? What might make this what might now be possible as a result of what's happening here? And guess what's happening? A lot of people are, in fact, using this time to start something new, to finally launch their podcast, to get into webinars now that everybody's home and learning online, to start new projects, to have a new passion project, a new hobby, to rekindle older relationships, to in fact spend more time together as a family, to invest, to remove things in life that were once a bother. This has been the cool thing about the pandemic. The pandemic has been tragic, but through a lot of these negative, dark periods, you can find light. There are silver linings, and I'm grateful because the pandemic has actually slowed us down to a point where, you know, our puppy passed away and we can now be here all the time with a new puppy as we're training it. It's allowed me to realize that I don't need to travel as much as I needed to. I was supposed to be speaking twice a month this year, traveling, going out and taking a plane, thus also taking time away from the kids, taking time away from April and puppy. And now that I've been stuck at home, guess what? It's not all bad that I'm not traveling. I'm still able to make connections, and this has been one of the large benefits of the income stream. I feel like the income stream has been like 238 consecutive days of me presenting on a stage and me connecting with the community like I would if I were to travel. So yeah, I haven't gone to the 7 or 8 presentations that I was supposed to, but I have showed up 238 days straight, creating something new, pushing myself a little bit to serve others, and it's become something amazing. You have served me so well here. You help me stay motivated to wake up every day. You help me consider what can I do better. You help me fine-tune my skills as a communicator and storyteller. You help me have fun on Fridays when we play games and sort of chill out for a little bit, right? Dr. Severin Bryan says, the pandemic has been a blessing for me. I just hate that so many have been hurt, but I'm thriving right now. Yeah, I know you know a lot of people are like that too. The universe must be in play today since I so needed to read these chats and hear this from Pat today. Thank you. Thank you, Mature Man. This has been truly an amazing show. Thank you, Peasant. Gosh, I love this crew. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Gail says, as a mom and a toddler, I'm grateful there are more opportunities to connect with the business community online. For sure. I'm thankful that we can end on this positive note because it's definitely been a tough year. I mean, I'm feeling fatigued for sure. And I know many of you are too, but we're coming up to some end of the year stuff here, right? Thanksgiving here in the US. And just because you're not in the US doesn't mean you can't celebrate with us. I think it's always important to express gratefulness and give thanks. The holidays coming up in December, obviously, New Year, right? Let's just 2021. Let's make it a great one. And I know a lot of people are going to be looking forward to a refresh, a restart. But that's honestly not going to be up to the universe. That's going to be up to you. How are you going to make 2021 better, no matter what happens? What are the things that we're going to do? And we're going to talk a little bit further down the road, maybe in episode 300-ish, before the new year happens. Actually, I think, when is 300? I think that might be in January, in fact. Before the start of the new year, we're definitely going to talk about goal setting and getting specific with them, creating smart, measurable goals, like all these sorts of things. We're going to get tactical. We're going to get strategical. But we're definitely going to continue to talk about this over time as well, because this isn't something that we could solve overnight. But part of what will help is having each other And again, I'm really grateful that we get to spend time here on the show every day, whether you can come in every day or not. I'm always going to be here and show up at least through an entire year of this. And I just hope and I pray that come March, when we hit episode 365 and we do a 365-minute stream, or I'm probably not going to do a 24-hour stream. We're going to do a long stream. We're going to do a big, massive celebration. We're going to recap some of our favorite shows. We're going to go deep. We're going to do big prizes. It's going to be a fun celebration for sure. But I want us to be more joyful than we are now around that time. I want us to have an entire year under the belt with growth for all of us. You, me, the entire crew here. It's going to be amazing. So, chat, I have to head out. I have a mastermind call in 3 minutes. So I want to thank you for today, for allowing me to share this. And I'm glad it came at the right time for several of you. And of course, this is always going to be here, and we're going to continue to talk about this topic. So if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification icon too. And thank you for, you'll often find that a lot of the times that these topics that I bring to the show here are not just a reflection of what I know you need, but are also reflections of what I need to. So thank you. Appreciate you. There's a reason why this episode came out today after just a massive week of finishing the launch of something. And I'm grateful for you too. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to be starting at, let's see, the time. Not this early, that's for sure. Perfect. Tomorrow, we're going to start at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And there will be office hours tomorrow for students of my courses. That'll be at 11:30 a.m. at the usual spot. And we'll go from there. So 9 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Thank you so much for today. I appreciate you, and I see you. You're always welcome here, and we're in this together. We're in this together. Take care. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific. Peace out, yo.
Bruh.